Evan pushed the old blanket tighter around his shoulders as the blizzard screamed across the empty streets. The cold felt alive tonight, like it wanted to eat his skin and bones. Snow hit his face again and again, making it hard to breathe. He walked under the broken bridge where he sometimes slept, hoping the wind would be softer there, but even under the bridge the storm felt angry. He had nowhere else to go and no one waiting for him. He was just a homeless man trying to survive another freezing night. As he crouched down, he heard something strange under the sound of the storm. A deep, heavy breathing that did not sound human. At first he thought maybe a big dog was trapped there, but the breathing was too loud, too slow, too powerful. He froze in place, unsure if he should run or stay. The sound came again, this time with a low, weak growl, like something was in pain. Evan's heart started beating faster, but curiosity pulled him forward. He stepped out from under the bridge and into the open snow. The wind nearly pushed him back, but he forced himself to look around. That's when he saw the shape. A huge dark mass lying half buried in the snow, only a few steps away. At first he thought it was a truck because of its size, but then he saw something move. A long tail dragging weakly against the ground. Evan gasped and stumbled back, his breath caught in his throat. It was a dragon, an actual dragon covered in ice, shivering like it was dying. The dragon slowly lifted its head and one golden eye opened halfway. It looked at him with fear, not anger, not hunger, only fear. Evan felt something unexpected. He felt sorry for it. The dragon tried to speak, but its voice was soft and cracked, like it had not talked for days. "Please, help me," it whispered in a voice so faint he almost missed it. Evan could not believe it was speaking to him, a nobody, a man with no home and no warm clothes. Yet the creature was begging him like a scared child asking for safety. Evan took one step back, thinking this must be a trick, or maybe he was dreaming from the cold. But the dragon's body trembled harder, and its wings collapsed deeper into the snow. It looked helpless, like it would stop breathing any second. The storm grew stronger around them, making the dragon shake even more. Evan knew if he walked away, he would spend the rest of his life wondering if he let something die right in front of him. Maybe he was foolish, maybe he was crazy, but he moved closer and slowly pulled his blanket off his shoulders. The moment the blanket touched the dragon's cold scales, the creature let out a weak breath, like it felt a little relief. Evan's hands burned from touching the freezing surface, but he did not stop. He wrapped the blanket around the dragon's neck. Though the blanket was tiny compared to the giant creature, it still seemed grateful. The dragon opened its eye wider and whispered again, this time with more fear in the voice. "If I die here, your world will die next." Evan did not understand the meaning, but something in the dragon's voice felt heavy, like a warning from another world. Before he could ask what it meant, the snow around them shook as if something huge was moving under it. Evan turned around, shaking from cold and fear. The trees nearby bent as the storm pulled them, like they were made of paper. The dragon tried to lift itself, but fell again, its wing hitting the snow with a loud thud. Evan realized he needed to move it somewhere safe, or it would freeze to death. He looked around and spotted an old abandoned factory across the road, the windows broken. It was not warm, but at least it was shelter from the blizzard. He turned to the dragon and said in a shaking voice that he was not sure it would understand, "I can help you, but you have to move a little." The dragon nodded slowly, like it trusted him, even though he did not trust himself. Evan pushed his shoulder under one part of the dragon's neck and tried to pull. The weight nearly crushed him, but the dragon weakly lifted its body, just enough so Evan could guide it forward inch by inch. The blizzard howled louder, as if trying to stop them. The ground shook again, making Evan fear that something else was hiding in the storm, something even more dangerous than the cold. The dragon whispered something Evan could not hear, then went silent, its breathing heavy and uneven. Evan dragged it step by step toward the factory, fighting the wind and the fear growing in his chest. When they finally reached the entrance, Evan collapsed to his knees, gasping for air. The dragon slid inside the factory floor with a heavy thump, sending dust into the air. For a moment everything went quiet except the soft, weak breathing of the dragon beside him. Evan stared at the creature, not knowing what would happen next, not knowing why it chose him, or what danger was following it through the storm. But he knew one thing clearly: this night was only the beginning of something far bigger than he understood. And whatever truth the dragon carried, it was something the world was not ready for. Evan sat on the cold factory floor, breathing hard while the dragon tried to curl its wings closer to its body. The wind outside still screamed, but inside the air felt strangely heavy, like the building itself was holding its breath. Evan looked at the creature, hoping it would explain something, anything, because none of this made sense to a homeless man who only wanted to survive a winter night. The dragon opened one tired eye and whispered, as if even talking caused pain, "Thank you, human. You saved a guardian today." Evan blinked, confused. Guardian of what? But the dragon continued slowly, like each word was made of stone. Not of treasure, not of kingdoms, of worlds. Evan stared at him without speaking, because he felt if he interrupted even one word, the creature might stop talking forever. The dragon lifted its head slightly, and the ice on its neck cracked off like broken glass. "Your storm. The blizzard outside. It is not a natural storm," it whispered. "It is a warning of what?" Evan asked, but he felt scared to hear the answer. The dragon looked toward the broken factory door, where snow blew inside like white smoke, and said, "Do you know why your winters are colder? Every year your storms are stronger. Every season feels wrong." Evan shook his head, because all he knew was that the world was hard and colder than it used to be. The dragon closed its eyes for a moment, gathering strength, then whispered, "Because something is coming. Something that eats light and freezes life." Evan felt a chill that was not from the cold. He felt his stomach twist, like someone had grabbed his insides. He whispered, "What do you mean, eats light?" The dragon answered a name that made the air seem to darken. The silence. Evan frowned because the name sounded simple, but the dragon's tone felt heavy, like the word carried death in it. The dragon explained, "The silence travel through stargates. They move like a shadow that consumes everything behind it. They destroyed worlds stronger than yours." Evan felt small, smaller than he already was, a homeless man with no future, no money, no family, and now sitting beside a dying dragon who said the world might not survive the next storm. He rubbed his hands together, trying to warm them, but nothing felt warm anymore. The dragon moved a little and whispered again, "I came through an ancient gate above your sky. It is older than my kind, older than your planet." It looked at Evan with a sad, heavy gaze. "But the gate was attacked. The silence followed me." Evan swallowed hard. "Followed you here?" The dragon nodded slowly. "I tried to close the gate, but I was injured. I fell through the clouds. I landed in the snow, and the storm formed around me." The dragon looked almost guilty. "The blizzard is a wound in the sky, and if I die, that wound will rip open." Evan felt dizzy because the meaning was clear. If the dragon died, the silence would come fully through the gate. Evan asked in a quiet voice, "Why me? Why did you ask me for help?" The dragon stared at him for a long moment, as if searching for something in his face. Then it said softly, "Because I sensed courage in you, courage and something else." Evan raised an eyebrow, because he had never felt brave in his life. He only felt hungry and tired. But before he could question further, the ground shook suddenly, as if something heavy landed outside. Evan spun toward the entrance, his heart racing. The dragon's breathing quickened, and fear flashed in its golden eyes. "They found us," it whispered. "The hunters." Evan didn't know what hunters meant, but he knew the fear in the dragon's tone was real. The snow at the entrance swirled like something invisible was standing there. Footsteps echoed on the metal floor, slow, sharp, unnatural. Evan stepped back, but the dragon pushed its tail in front of him, weakly trying to shield him, even in its fragile state. Evan whispered, "What do they want?" The dragon answered with a trembling voice, "To finish what the silence started. To kill the guardian before the gate opens again." Evan's chest tightened as he heard more footsteps outside, like more creatures were surrounding the factory. The wind began to howl in a strange pattern like voices whispering through the storm. Evan could almost hear words inside the wind, words that sounded like hunger and death. The dragon tried to rise, but its legs trembled too much. "I cannot fight them in this form," it whispered. "But you must survive no matter what happens." Evan felt something strange, then something warm in his hands, even though the room was freezing. The dragon noticed and stared at his hands with surprise. "It has awakened," the dragon whispered in awe. Evan looked at his palms and saw a faint blue glow like a spark of light breathing under his skin. He panicked as he whispered, "What is happening to me?" The dragon said softly. "You carry this spark of the old defenders, the last human guardians. Your blood remembers." Evan's heart raced faster because he did not understand how a man with nothing could have anything special inside him. But the glow grew stronger, reflecting on the metal floor around him. The footsteps outside stopped. A chilling silence rolled through the factory, and the dragon closed its eyes for a second. "They are choosing who enters first," it whispered. "Evan, whatever you see next, do not run." The last whisper faded into the cold air, just as the first shadow stepped through the broken door. The real danger had finally arrived. Evan's breath stopped the moment the shadow stepped into the factory. It was tall, too tall, its head nearly touching the broken metal beams above. Its body was thin like a starving creature, but its movements were smooth and sharp like a blade made of cold wind. The creature's skin looked like cracked ice, glowing faint blue in some places and pitch black in others. Frost spread on the floor with every step it took, freezing the ground instantly. Its face was hidden behind a mask of solid frost, with long, narrow cracks like empty eyes watching everything with hunger. Evan's legs shook and he wanted to step back, but the dragon weakly pushed its tail against him, reminding him not to move. The dragon whispered with a trembling voice, "Silence, hunter." Evan swallowed hard because the air around the creature felt wrong, like the world itself hated its presence. Behind it, more shadows waited outside their bodies, moving like smoke inside the blizzard. But only the first creature entered slowly with measured steps, as if smelling the fear inside the factory walls. The hunter stopped in front of the dragon and tilted its head like a curious animal. Then it spoke, but the voice did not sound like words. It sounded like ice breaking underwater. Evan could barely understand the meaning behind the strange tone until the hunter said something clearer in a twisted, icy whisper. "Guardian." "Dying." The dragon lifted its head slightly, though its strength was almost gone. "You cannot have this world," it whispered, but the hunter only laughed, a cold breath that fogged the air into sharp crystals. The hunter turned its attention toward Evan, and that moment felt like knives touching his skin. Evan felt a pressure in his chest, as if the creature was trying to squeeze his heart without touching him. He tried to step back, but the dragon's tail held him in place. The hunter leaned closer, sniffing the air around Evan like a predator smelling prey. "The human carries spark," it hissed, sounding almost surprised. Evan's glowing hands flickered weakly, as if reacting to the creature's presence. Evan whispered to himself, praying the glow would stop, but it only grew brighter, making him a clear target. The hunter's mask twisted into something like a smile, then it raised one long, freezing arm and pointed a sharp claw at Evan's chest. Evan felt the air freeze around him, the cold crawling up his neck like icy fingers. He shut his eyes, thinking this was the end, thinking he would die inside an abandoned factory beside a dragon he met an hour ago. But before the hunter's claw reached him, a burst of weak orange fire shot across the floor. The dragon had tried to breathe fire even in its broken state. The flames were small but strong enough to push the hunter a few steps back as it hissed angrily. The dragon collapsed again after the failed attack, breathing too fast and too weak. Evan felt panic rising in him as he realized the dragon could not defend itself anymore. The hunter slowly walked forward again, snow swirling at its feet like a living storm. It raised its claw again and hissed, "Human. Spark. Mine." Evan felt the cold claw coming toward him again, and this time the dragon could not help. His heart pounded, his hands shook, and the glow inside them flickered like scared light trying to hide. Suddenly the hunter stopped 3 steps away from him, its head tilted again, watching his hands. The blue glow inside Evan's palms suddenly pulsed like a beating heart. A loud crackle echoed in the factory as a flash of light burst out from Evan's hands, without him meaning to do anything at all. The hunter let out a sharp screech as the light hit its chest. The icy body shattered halfway, sending fragments of frost across the floor like broken glass. Evan stumbled backward, shocked, breathing hard, staring at his own shaking hands. He whispered, "What did I just do?" But the dragon answered with awe in its voice. "The spark protects when you need it most." The hunter was not fully dead, though. The bottom half of its body still crawled across the floor, dragging itself toward the shadows outside. Its broken voice whispered something to the others waiting outside. "Human has spark." The shadows outside moved quickly, almost like frightened animals being warned of danger. Evan's fear spiked because he realized the hunters now knew he was not normal. He was something they were hunting. The dragon tried to lift its head again and said with urgency, "Evan, you must listen. The spark chose you. It awakened because your world needs you." Evan shook his head, overwhelmed. He felt like someone had thrown him into a nightmare he did not ask for. He was just a man who slept under bridges. He was not a warrior of stars or a protector of worlds. But the dragon's voice grew sharper, even in its weak state. "The silence will return. They will send more. They will send worse. You must leave this place before they surround us." Evan stared at the broken hunter crawling away, leaving trails of frost and fear behind. He felt the weight of the truth crushing his chest. He whispered, "Where do we go then?" The dragon's golden eye glowed faintly as it answered, "To the mountains, to the hidden gate. Your spark is the only key left." Evan felt the glow in his hands respond to those words, pulsing again, like a heartbeat, ready to awaken something much bigger. He had no idea what waited for him outside this factory, or how much danger was coming, but he knew something clearly now. There was no going back to the life he had before. The hunters had seen him, the silence had marked him, and the real chase was just beginning. Evan helped the dragon shift its weight as the factory lights flickered from the strange cold outside. His heart still raced from what happened with the hunter. Half of its body shattered, the other half crawling away into the storm like a broken nightmare, looking for more monsters to warn. Evan could not forget the sound that made that icy whisper saying the human has spark. He kept staring at his own glowing hands, afraid of them, confused by them, and unsure whether they were a blessing or a curse. The dragon tried to lift its head, but it trembled from weakness, the ice still clinging to its wings like chains. Evan knelt beside it, worried. "You need help," he whispered, but the dragon shook its head, slowly breathing a warm cloud of smoke. "I will recover," it said, "but your world will not if we stay here." The dragon looked at him with a deeper gaze, a gaze that felt older than time itself. "Evan, you must understand who you are." Evan laughed weakly, but there was fear inside the sound. "I am no one," he whispered. "I sleep under bridges. I look for coins on the ground. I can barely survive a normal winter night." But the dragon shook its head again, its golden eye shining through the lingering ice. "You carry the spark, the blood of gate defenders," it whispered. "Your ancestors once protected the sky gates before history forgot them." Evan blinked because the words sounded like something out of a fantasy story, not something that belonged to a man like him. "My ancestors," he repeated, confused. "Protected the sky." "Yes," the dragon whispered. "Long before humans built cities, before you named continents, your kind stood guard at the gates that opened between worlds." Evan shook his head, unable to believe it, but the dragon continued with quiet certainty. "When the gates closed, the defenders grew normal. Their spark slept generation after generation." The dragon stared at Evan's hands, which still glowed a soft, faint blue. "Until tonight, when danger touched you, and the spark woke once more." Evan felt the weight of those words settle in his chest like a heavy stone. The thought that he might be connected to something ancient, something powerful, felt unreal. He was a man forgotten by society, someone people passed without seeing, someone who never had a future. And now he was being told he was part of a forgotten line of protectors. He rubbed his glowing hands on his jacket, but the light did not fade, it only pulsed softly, like a second heartbeat. "I don't want this," he whispered honestly. "I can't be this." "You already are," the dragon replied softly. "The spark reveals what is hidden, but it cannot be undone." Evan felt fear crawl through him, because the dragon was right. The spark chose him, not the other way around. The dragon shifted slightly and winced in pain, its scales turning white from cold. "We must move soon," it whispered, "before more hunters come." Evan swallowed hard but nodded, because staying here meant death for both of them. "How far is this gate?" Evan asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted the answer. The dragon whispered, "Far into the mountain range beyond the storm." Evan stared outside the broken door, at the blizzard still roaring violently like a living monster waiting to swallow them. "How do we get there?" he asked. The dragon breathed slowly. "I can fly low, but not fast and not far in my condition." Evan looked uncertain. "Then we hide," he suggested. "We move slowly, maybe they won't find us." The dragon looked at him with deep sadness as it said, "The silence hunters are not creatures who search, they feel, they sense sparks, they smell fear, they follow life that glows." Evan felt a chill run up his spine, because every description made them sound worse than any predator he could imagine. "So we run and hope," Evan whispered, "or we die trying." The dragon replied with honesty that felt sharper than the cold outside. The dragon lowered its head close to Evan. "Before we go, you must know the truth about what is coming." Evan hesitated, but nodded. The dragon continued in a low voice, "The silence do not want this world, they want the gate hidden beneath your mountains." Evan felt confused. "Why?" "Because it is one of the oldest gates," the dragon answered. "One that connects to the brightest star paths. If they consume the gate, they consume everything connected to it." Evan felt dizzy trying to understand the scale of what was happening, the size of the threat, compared to him, a single man who had nothing. "Why didn't anyone tell us?" he whispered. The dragon sighed weakly. "Humans forgot the stars, they forgot the defenders, they forgot the warnings. When knowledge fades, danger becomes invisible." Evan felt anger and fear mixed together, because the truth was heavy and cruel and frightening. But he also felt something warming growing inside his chest, not courage exactly, but something close to it. Evan placed his hand on the dragon's icy scales, feeling the spark inside him pulse stronger. "Then tell me what to do," he whispered. The dragon lifted its head slightly and said, "Protect me until we reach the gate. Protect the spark inside you, because together we can seal the gate, or open it, or destroy the silence forever." Evan took a deep, slow breath, his hands glowing brighter than ever before. Outside, the storm seemed to roar louder, as if it sensed their decision. Evan stood up slowly despite the fear shaking his legs and whispered, "Then let's move." The dragon nodded weakly. And together, they prepared to leave the broken factory carrying a truth the world had forgotten, and a spark that would soon decide its fate. Evan helped the dragon stand again, its giant body trembling under the weight of ice and exhaustion. The storm outside had grown even louder, thundering like a living creature hungry for them. The dragon leaned heavily on one wing, dragging its tail across the cracked floor as they moved toward the shattered doorway. Evan felt the cold bite his face the moment he stepped outside, but he pushed forward anyway, because staying inside meant the hunters would find them soon. The dragon whispered weakly, "Climb onto my back." "We must move fast." Evan hesitated because the dragon was barely able to stand, let alone fly. But the dragon turned its head slowly, its golden eye burning with determination. "I will not fall with you," it whispered. Evan nodded and grabbed onto the dragon's scales, pulling himself onto its back, the cold from its body shocking, his hands like touching frozen stone. The moment he settled, the dragon spread its damaged wings, the membranes shaking from the icy wind. With a painful groan, it pushed off the ground and lifted a few feet into the air. The flight was unsteady, the dragon dipping and rising like a wounded bird fighting a hurricane. Evan held on tightly, his fingers numb, but his mind sharp as he watched the storm swirl around them like violent white smoke. The city below was almost unrecognizable, hidden beneath mountains of snow cars frozen solid. Entire streets covered in ice that glowed faintly from the strange energy in the air. It looked like the world was being erased piece by piece, Evan whispered. "How is this storm even possible?" the dragon answered between gasps. The silence bent weather through broken gates. "The storm is a taste of what they bring." Evan felt a deeper fear settle inside him, because this storm was only the beginning. The dragon flew lower, now skimming rooftops and trying to hide among the broken buildings so the hunters above, the clouds, would not see them. Occasionally, Evan spotted dark shapes moving through the snow shadows that walked upright, but did not leave footprints. Each time the dragon lowered even further wings, brushing the tops of cars as they rushed past unseen threats. The freezing wind stung Evan's eyes, and his hands began glowing again, without him trying to make them. The dragon noticed and whispered, "The spark reacts to danger. Let it guide you." Evan didn't understand how to control it, but the glow pulsed every time a hunter was near, even when he couldn't see it clearly. It was like his body sensed the danger before his eyes did. This frightened him, but also kept him alive. They flew out of the edge of the ruined city toward the dark outline of mountains far away, their shapes rising like black teeth against the storm sky. The journey grew harder, the storm thickening, as if trying to push them back. Snow hit Evan like stones, the wind screaming so loud he couldn't hear his own breaths. The dragon's wings grew slower, weaker each minute. "Hold on," the dragon whispered. "I can't fly much longer." Evan felt panic, but he scanned the land below for shelter. He spotted a stretch of thick forest, the trees tall enough to hide them. He leaned closer and shouted, "Land there." The dragon turned toward the trees, shaking as it descended. When they finally reached the forest canopy, the dragon collapsed between the roots of two giant pines, its wings folding painfully inward. Evan jumped off and helped steady it, even though his body was shaking from cold and fear. The forest was silent apart from the storm above the trees, bending violently, but the thick branches here gave a little protection. Evan felt safer, but not safe, the spark inside his hands pulsing faintly, warning him danger was still close. The dragon breathed heavily, steam rising from its nostrils and melting small circles in the snow. "We must keep moving soon," it whispered. "But I needed to land or I would fall from the sky." Evan nodded, though he knew they could not stay long. He looked around the dark forest and noticed strange patterns in the snow, long thin streaks like something had been dragged. He crouched down, touching the ice, and felt a chill shoot through his arm, the spark reacting instantly. He whispered, "Something was here." The dragon opened its eyes slowly. Hunters travel fast in forests. They glide through shadows. Evan stood quickly, fear rising again. "Then we need to move now." The dragon tried to rise again, but its legs trembled even more. Evan felt his heart sink, because he knew the dragon could not fly again yet. He looked up the mountains, still far away, barely visible through the storm. "How do we reach the gate like this?" he whispered. The dragon breathed, a weak ember of fire melting snow around its claws. "We walk, slowly, hidden among trees until I recover enough to fly again." Evan tightened his coat around his broken body and stepped closer. "Then I walk with you." The dragon stared at him for a long moment. "Evan, the path ahead is not safe. The hunters will come in numbers, and the silence will try to break you." Evan took a deep breath, the spark glowing brighter as if answering the challenge. "I know," he whispered, "but I won't leave you." The dragon lowered its head in respect. "Then the mountains will open for us," it said quietly. Evan placed his glowing hand on the dragon's scale, and for a moment, the spark flowed into the dragon, warming the ice on its body just enough to help it breathe easier. They began their slow, painful journey through the dark forest, unaware that far above the trees, cold eyes were watching them, hungry and waiting. The hunt had already begun again. Evan walked beside the dragon through the dark, frozen forest, the air sharp and heavy like the storm was breathing down their necks. The trees bent and groaned above them, but down here under the branches, the wind was quieter, as if the forest itself was trying to protect them. Evan's boots sank into deep snow with every step, and his legs felt numb, but he refused to slow down because every moment they wasted the hunters grew closer. The dragon moved slowly, its steps unstable, its wings dragging across the snow like heavy torn cloth. Steam rose from its nostrils every few breaths, but even that steam was weak and thin now. The spark in Evan's hands pulsed softly with every danger that hid between the trees. Sometimes he heard a sound behind them, like ice cracking or branches snapping, but whenever he looked, nothing was there. Only empty paths and swirling mist. The dragon noticed the spark change in color from soft blue to sharp white. "Hunters walk the shadows," it whispered. "Do not trust silence." Evan felt a shiver crawl up his arms at those words, because the forest was so silent it felt like it was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. They reached a small frozen river, the surface smooth like glass with long cracks, glowing faint blue from the strange energy in the storm. The dragon stepped carefully, its claws tapping the ice with quiet clicks. Evan moved slowly, trying not to slip, but halfway across he felt the spark flare violently inside him. He froze, his heart pounding. "Something is under the ice," he whispered. The dragon's eyes tightened. "Keep walking. Do not look down." But curiosity pulled Evan's eyes downward, and he instantly regretted it. Shapes moved beneath the ice, tall figures gliding silently, as if swimming in darkness, their hands trailing frost along the underside of the ice sheet. Their faces pressed against the frozen surface, distorted and hollow, their mouths open like silent screams. Evan stumbled back, his breath catching in terror. "They are under us," he whispered. The dragon said softly. "Hunters watch from below before they rise." Evan hurried across the ice, following the dragon's large steps, trying not to fall or give the creatures below a chance to break through. At the riverbank, they rushed into the trees again just in time, because a loud cracking sound burst behind them, the ice splitting open as several dark shapes clawed up from beneath it. Evan didn't look back, he just followed the dragon deeper into the forest, his spark pulsing fast, almost painful. The dragon whispered, "Your spark is warning you. The gate is near, but so is danger." Evan finally saw the mountains clearly between the trees, their peaks covered in storm, clouds glowing faint silver like something inside them was alive. The sight filled him with fear and a strange sense of destiny, something pulling him forward. The dragon stopped to rest against a stone wall, its body shaking from exhaustion. Evan knelt beside it. "We're close, right?" he asked. The dragon nodded weakly. "Yes. The ancient gate lies inside this mountain, hidden behind stone that only the spark can open." Evan touched the rock wall and felt a vibration deep inside it, like a heartbeat answering his spark. The dragon watched him with tired eyes. "Place your hand fully on the stone," it whispered. Evan hesitated, but did as told, pressing his glowing palm against the cold surface. The moment he touched it, the stone lit up with thousands of tiny blue veins spreading outward like lightning trapped in rock. A deep rumble shook the ground, and the wall slowly began to shift, pieces sliding apart as if waking from centuries of sleep. A hidden opening appeared wide and dark inside the mountain, a long corridor that smelled of ancient dust and cold air untouched for ages. Evan stepped back in awe. "I opened it," he whispered. The dragon smiled weakly. "You carry the spark of the defenders. The gate listens to you." The dragon tried to walk inside, but its legs buckled, and Evan rushed to help. "I'll support you," he whispered. "Just stay close." Inside the mountain, the walls glowed faint blue from runes carved into the stone, ancient symbols that moved like water when Evan looked too long. The spark inside his hands pulled him deeper into the dark until they reached a vast chamber, shaped like a circle with a massive archway in the center. The archway was cracked, broken, and covered in shimmering frost, a thin pulse of light running through it like a dying heartbeat. Evan stepped toward it, feeling something stir inside him, something old and powerful. The dragon lowered itself beside the archway, resting its head on the ground. "This is the gate of the ancients," it whispered. "The last shield between your world and the silence." Evan felt overwhelmed, staring at the archway as strange visions flickered in his mind. Warriors, made of light, stars collapsing, sky paths breaking apart. He staggered forward, gripping his head. The dragon whispered, "The gate is speaking to your spark, showing you the truth." Evan knelt in front of the archway, his hands glowing so brightly they lit the entire chamber. But before he could touch the gate, a chilling scream echoed from the tunnel. Behind them, a sound that froze Evan's blood instantly. The dragon's eyes snapped open. "They followed us," it whispered. Evan turned slowly toward the tunnel entrance and saw cold shadows stretching across the floor, moving closer like crawling darkness. The hunters were inside the mountain, and this time, they were not alone. The moment Evan saw the shadows crawling into the chamber, his heart tightened like a fist inside his chest. The hunters moved slowly, but with purpose, their bodies stretching unnaturally, their limbs long and thin like broken icicles dragging across the stone. The cold they carried filled the air around them, freezing the ancient runes on the walls, turning blue light into sharp white frost. The dragon struggled to rise, but its legs trembled too much, its wings collapsing against the floor as it whispered in fear. They brought the warden. Evan had no idea what a warden was, but the way the dragon said the word made his spine tingle. Then he heard a deep cracking sound like a mountain splitting open. From behind the hunters, a massive shape entered the chamber, towering above them. It had no mask, no armor, only a face carved from living ice with cracks glowing like frozen lightning inside. Its eyes were empty holes filled with swirling snow, and its voice echoed across the stone as it spoke. "Human spark. Return it or shatter." Evan felt the spark surge inside him, reacting to the creature with fierce heat, but also fear. He stepped back instinctively, but the dragon whispered harshly, "No. Do not step back. The gate listens to your courage." Evan forced himself to stop, his knees shaking, the cold biting into his skin like thousands of tiny knives. The hunters fanned out around the warden, forming a circle, trapping Evan and the dragon in the center of the chamber. Evan's breath came out in weak clouds as the cold intensified, turning the air sharp. The warden took one step forward, and the ground under its feet cracked, instantly frost spreading across the floor toward Evan like a living creature. Evan raised his glowing hands, trying to focus, but the spark flickered in panic. The warden reached its long arm toward him, its fingers like frozen blades. Evan heard the dragon's weak voice. "Use the spark." Not from fear, from will. Evan swallowed hard, trying to breathe, trying to calm the shaking inside him, but the warden stepped closer, the frost creeping up his boots like icy vines trying to swallow him. The spark inside Evan suddenly pulsed violently, a bright pain shooting through his chest. His hands glowed stronger than ever, before blue light swirling around his fingers like flames of cold fire. The warden paused for a moment, its hollow eyes narrowing, as if recognizing the power forming inside Evan. "So the spark awakens. Then the silence must break you before you break us," it hissed. The hunters moved closer, their bodies twisting into monstrous shapes ready to strike. One leaped forward, but the spark reacted before Evan did, sending a blast of blue energy straight into its chest, the creature exploding into shards of frost instantly. Evan stared at his own hands in shock, but the warden only grew angrier, its voice shaking the walls. "Human light cannot stop the storm," it roared. It raised both arms to strike, but Evan stepped forward this time, his fear replaced by something fierce, something new. "I'm not stopping the storm," he whispered. "I'm ending it." The spark surged again, filling the entire chamber with swirling blue wind that lifted dust, snow, and broken pieces of stone into the air like a small cyclone. The dragon felt the change and lifted its head, whispering, Yes, Evan. Let it rise. This is your true form. Evan looked back at the dragon and nodded, the spark inside him answering like a living heartbeat. He turned again toward the warden and the hunters, the glow around him growing brighter and brighter until the entire chamber looked lit by a small blue sun. The warden lunged forward, its icy claws swinging at Evan, but he lifted his hands and the spark formed a shield of light, freezing the warden's arm mid-air and cracking it down the center. The warden roared and tried again, but Evan pushed his hands forward, and a wave of blue force hit the creature so hard it slid across the chamber, leaving a trail of shattered ice behind. The hunters panicked, rushing toward Evan all at once, but the spark burst outward, a shockwave of glowing energy that swept them away, scattering them against the walls like broken shadows. Evan gasped for air, feeling the energy burn through his arms. But he didn't stop. He couldn't stop because the gate behind him was shaking, the runes glowing the arch, responding to his spark. The warden rose again, pieces of ice falling off its body, its voice shaking with rage and fear. You are only a human. You cannot close the gate. Evan turned fully toward the giant creature and whispered, Watch me. He placed both hands on the cracked archway, the spark inside him exploding through his palms, sending bright blue light through every crack, every rune, every ancient symbol carved into the stone. The gate roared to life, glowing wide and bright like a star waking from sleep. The warden screamed, trying to reach him, but the dragon finally rose with its last strength and unleashed a stream of fire, blocking the warden's path. Evan pressed harder, the spark burning through him, the gate shaking, the mountain walls trembling like thunder. The hunters began melting, the frost falling off their bodies as the gate absorbed every shadow around them, pulling the darkness inward like a giant breath. The warden tried to run, but its legs froze in place, blue light crawling up its body, turning it into crystal from the inside out. With one last surge, the spark inside Evan exploded through the chamber, sealing the gate with a thunderous crack of light that shook the entire mountain. The warden shattered into a million frozen pieces. The hunters vanished like smoke swallowed by the collapsing storm. Evan fell to his knees, gasping, his hands still glowing gently, but no longer burning. The dragon collapsed beside him, breathing weak but relieved. Outside, the blizzard faded, the sky clearing as the silence finally broke for the last time. Evan looked up at the dragon, and the dragon whispered proudly, You saved your world. Guardian. Evan closed his eyes, breathing deeply, the spark resting quietly inside him, now knowing the battle was over. But his duty had only just begun.